Hi, everyone. My name is Alan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow Commerce Next co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sonsev, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021, and our topic this week is unlocking zero-party data with loyalty. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome all of our speakers. First off, we've got Matt Powell. He's a CTO at FTD. Sunil Kaki, EVP of Marketing at Openfit and Beachbody. Andrea Moore, the SVP Digital, E-commerce and Consumer Insights at Nest New York. And Jordan Gutman, the GM of Loyalty at Yotpo. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. We'll catch up with all of you in just a few moments. I also want to thank our sponsor, Yotpo. Thank you guys for making this possible. It's always great to have you on board. Thank you so much for allowing us to put this content together and to deliver it at no charge to our audience. I also want to thank GiftNow, our gifting partner. What the speakers may know, because they've been with us before, is they get a free gift from GiftNow, as well as 5 lucky members from our live audience. We'll draw those at random at the end of the show. Sorry, replay listeners. That's for the live attendees only. Today's agenda. First off, we're going to show you where you can find some more Commerce Next content. Going to hit the housekeeping notes for those of you who haven't been with us here before. Jordan is going to talk about how to unlock zero-party data using loyalty. Got a couple of audience polls and things to go over. And then we'll go into the panel discussion about 25-ish after the hour. We'll bring everyone on. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up next. We're going to skip Wednesday, November 3rd, but we're back on the 10th. Veronica Sonsev is going to talk more about loyalty. It's how to drive holiday growth from your loyalty program. Obviously, this is going to be focusing on how to use loyalty more tactically in your loyalty program, or how to use your loyalty program more tactically for holiday. She's going to be here with Elf Beauty, Savage X Fenty, and Imperity. Looking forward to that one. We also have, I want to remind you about our podcast. Our newest episode features Mira Bhatia. She will be discussing the agility, membership, and mentorship lessons she's learned during her tenure as COO of Fabletics. You can find out more at commercenext.com or wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. You missed anything? No worries, we got you covered. Over 180 videos over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Commerce Next, including all of our keynotes and main stage presentations from our recent In Real Life conference in New York. It was one of our highest rated shows ever, and the content there was really good, well worth you taking a look at. Finally, one of the things we've got available for you as a download is our Year of the Customer research report. This is a 38-page report we released at the IRL, where we examine the data behind retailers shifting their focus from acquisition to retention and how they deal with privacy concerns. You can download that here. Excellent report, lots of benchmarking data, well worth your time to take a look through that. All right, let's go through some housekeeping. Don't worry about missing anything. We're recording this webinar. We'll make it available to you very shortly. And I want to take a moment to show you where everything is on your screen. Take a look at the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You'll see 4 buttons: Chat, Q&A, Polls, and Handouts. Chat, we want you to use that when you want to comment on the webinar, congratulate the speakers, or make comments back and forth with the audience. That's more of a back and forth for the audience to use. Q&A is when you want to ask a specific question of our speakers, and we strongly encourage you to do that. One of the things that really makes these webinars interesting is when the audience starts really getting engaged and they really start asking questions. One of the reasons we ask you to do it in this functionality is because you can upvote it. There's a little upvote button there. Please, if you see a question you like, I think we really should get to, go ahead and click on that upvote button. That signals us to go after that question and make sure we get it answered for you. You can put your questions or comments in the lower right-hand side of your screen in the text field box. Handouts are also available. We got a pair of them for this one, including the slides and the research report that's available. And if you're watching this on replay, thank you so much for joining us. And you can catch all of the handouts here in this document icon button. And with that, I want to bring on Jordan Gutman. He's GM of Loyalty at Yotpo. He's going to be discussing zero-party data with loyalty. Jordan, how's it going?
Going well. Thanks, Alan. And hi, everyone. Like Alan said, I'm Jordan Gutman. I'm the general manager of Yotpo's Loyalty and Referrals platform. And today I'm going to introduce a topic that some of you might be familiar with, but it's becoming more and more timely by the day, which is zero-party data. And it's becoming more relevant because of it's sort of the beginning of the next wave of privacy changes. And much of those are around iOS and sort of the cookieless world. And it impacts how brands are able to create experiences for their customers that are more meaningful. So I think, as most of us know, as the cookie crumbles, as we say, but privacy issues and privacy regulations are creating a lot of changes for marketers and how we're actually able to target new customers, target our existing customers to grow the brand. And it also creates a challenge in personalizing experiences because third-party data is effectively becoming more and more obsolete by the day. So how do we prepare for this new world as brands and marketers? And one of the strategies, of which there are many that are required, is zero-party data. And zero-party data, by the way, is a term that I believe was coined by Forrester. And I'll go into more on the differences because I think there's sometimes confusion between first-party data and zero-party data and what exactly is it. So first-party data, as I guess a lot of you guys know, is data that's acquired through your own interactions with your customers. So that's transactional data, behavioral data, how people are interacting with your digital and physical assets in the real world and digital world. And zero-party data is data that customers are voluntarily giving to you. So there's some of the obvious things, which is surveys, quizzes, direct questions, and we'll get into more examples later. And this information can be used to basically further create a personalized experience that encourages engagement with your brand via your customers, and you having what feels more like a one-to-one relationship. And of course, the result is improving retention, improving lifetime value, and improving the sentiment and how people actually feel about your brand. So first, I want to intro, because I think the question always is, well, how am I going to get people to give me their data? So earlier this year, we ran a consumer survey, and there was a bunch of unique findings, but I think the ones that are relevant here is that customers really care about their experience, and they're now willing to become an active participant in how you curate the experience for them. So we found that 83% of customers that we surveyed are willing to share data with brands if they're transparent about how it's going to be used, which is really quite interesting. They're basically saying that if you tell me what you're going to do and I feel that that is going to create a better experience for me, I'm willing to give you information about myself. And 82% were willing to give personal data in order to receive personalized recommendations, discounts, services, promotions, and benefits, which is, I think, relatively obvious, but the numbers are quite high. And really what it is, it's about exchanging value for value. So if I'm a consumer, I want to know why you want my information and if I'm getting something of value in return for that. And the value can come in a bunch of different shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's as simple as, we'll only market things to you that we think you'll actually want. And a lot of times it's something more. And the something more, I'll talk about how loyalty basically feeds into that, or a loyalty program in terms of what you can actually do. So we see loyalty as one of the best ways to exchange value because a lot of times it feels much less transactional than just giving someone a coupon for something, because that's very, very transactional and it's maybe over gamified. But the obvious places, of course, are discounts, but points, which are effectively discounts, but they're reformed as a broader part of the interaction and relationship that consumers have with your brand. And we also see value in things that are not just discount oriented, but they're new benefits. So that's exclusive access to sales, free samples, free services, just giving people something that they wouldn't otherwise get from you guys, which is value. And then I also want to walk through a few examples just so you can get an idea for how brands are actually collecting the data, what kinds of things that they're doing, and then what you're able to do with that, because I think it sort of begins to unlock some ideas for a lot of people. So Mizzen in Maine is one of our customers who I believe a lot of people are probably familiar with. And they've taken actually like a pretty simple but really interesting approach, which is through quizzes. So they have two quizzes. The one is the style and fit quiz, and the other one is the lifestyle quiz, which I actually think on both ends gives a pretty unique set of information and a lot of ideas for what you can do with it. So the style quiz is simple. It's what kinds of clothes do you like? How do you like them to fit? How often do you wear these different pieces, right? Which allows me as a marketer to say, if they like a relaxed fit, I can talk about that in my marketing message. I can promote those. I can create promotions specifically for that customer around that because I know that they're more likely to buy and like those kinds of clothing. But more interesting is lifestyle profile, which is much broader. It's, where do you go? What do you do? Do you golf? Do you hike? What kind of clothes do you wear to work? What do you wear on the weekends? Things when you go on vacation, are you more of a beach person? Are you a mountain person? Are you a city person? And once I have this information as a brand, I now know what you're more inclined to engage with. If you're a vacation person that likes to go to beaches, I can actually start to market the summer clothing, whether it's linens, things that you might wear to the beach, and you can market those around vacation season. And the idea is with a lot of consumers, you only have so many shots in terms of marketing, whether that's email marketing or other. And the more relevant it is, the more likely or the less likely they are to unsubscribe, for example, and the more likely they are to engage. When you're coming up on Black Friday sale, for example, you can only choose so many different products that you can market. And so you want to know what's the best shot. It also, some of the other benefits is just getting an idea for how valuable these customers might be in the future. If I know someone wears, business casual to work 5 days a week, and that's their wardrobe, and I'm a brand that sells a lot of business casual clothing, I know that there's a lot of potential for this customer. And on top of that, if I know they check the other boxes in terms of lifestyle for the other products that we sell, I know there's an even higher lifetime value. So it also creates a pretty unique profile of who your customers are. Another example is Dr. Dennis Gross, skincare. I think skincare is one of those things, at least as a man who probably doesn't focus on it as much as I should. A lot of people come with very limited understanding of how different products interact with or work for different skin types. And so Dr. Dennis Gross, they have a skin quiz where you can talk about your skin type, your skin concerns, do you get sunburnt easily? All of those kinds of different unique attributes, and also your experience with skincare products in the past. Have they worked? Do you feel like they work? Have they not? Do you have allergies? Again, because this allows me as a brand to basically offer personalized recommendations for what's going to work for that customer. And you can see even just across these two examples, you have two very different categories and two very different types of consumer where there's in skincare, oftentimes you see a lack of knowledge and a very specific kind of matching in products to people based on actual physical attributes. And then in fashion, you see something different, which is preferences. They're not physical attributes. They're my mental attributes, for lack of a better word. And how do I actually match what I offer as a brand with what the consumer's most likely to want to purchase, right? And what are they going to like about us so that I can start to tailor this experience even further. And so the overall result is data that creates better experiences that are personalized. And what they effectively do is they allow brands to create relationships with their customers at scale, which is obviously very hard to do in the modern world where you have, tens, 20, sometimes hundreds of thousands of customers shopping through you in a bunch of different avenues per month, because you have your retail stores, you have your online presence. Sometimes you even have third-party retailers that you're working through, which are even harder to collect data from. And if you are going to offer the best experience, they're most likely to shop with you regardless, right? Once they've kind of developed that bit of loyalty, it just continues to give you more and more permission to market with them, to sell to them, and build the relationship with that consumer. And so that's the high level of zero party data, at least in the intro. And I know we're going to get a lot more into it in the panel. But thanks for joining me in this talk.
All right. Jordan, thank you so much. We'll bring you right back here in just a moment. Perfect. All right. So for those of you that joined us late, I just want to remind you to take a look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can chat with fellow audience members. You can ask the speakers questions, which we strongly encourage. We have some polls that we're going to be coming up here with in just a second. And we also have a couple of great handouts. Jordan's slides are there, as well as a research report we released at the IRL last month. So moving right along, it's poll time. And when we're done with the polls, you can just see the polls in the tab called polls, cleverly named, obviously. When they're closed, you can see all the results by just clicking on the close button. So let's get to it. Question number 1. How would you grade your current loyalty efforts relative to the industry? How would you grade your current loyalty efforts relative to the industry? Are they exemplary, above average, adequate to average, below average, or poor? What are you thinking? Let's take a look at how that's coming in. Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of above average here. All right, give you a few more seconds here. Okay, so right now we're showing poor is about 16%, below average is 42%, adequate or average is 31%, above average is 11%, and 2% exemplary. It's interesting. Let's close that poll out. It's interesting because last week we took a look at that and we asked the same question of our audience last week, and only 4% had it above average. And I thought it was interesting that with the renewed interest and shift in resources from acquisition to retention and privacy, that folks thought that their programs weren't up to snuff. And maybe that's why the shift. People think that there's some room for improvement there. So interesting. Thank you for doing that. Let's go to our second question. What loyalty program incentives do you offer your customers? And you can click all that apply. Is it discounts, free or upgraded shipping, early or exclusive access to product, early exclusive access to content? Do you have a points value or a points program where you can redeem points for value like free products or credits or gift cards? Do you make charitable donations on the customer's behalf, or is it something else? If you do have something else, this is one of the neat things about the webinars is that if you guys that have something else and feel like sharing, put that in the chat. It's always good to kind of kick these ideas around. It's one of the reasons we try to bring everyone together is to start doing a little brainstorming here. So if you've got something interesting that you're doing as an incentive, please feel free to share it. Again, what loyalty program incentives do you offer your customers? Let's see where the numbers are coming in. And since it's a multiple choice, I'm gonna give you some time here. All right. So unfortunately, but not surprising, discounts. Number one answer, 30%. Free and upgraded shipping, 23%. Earlier exclusive access to product came in at 13%. Points program is 17%. Charitable donations, 10%. Nice, interesting. And finally, early or exclusive access to content came in at 5%. So definitely discounts and free and upgraded shipping are on the agenda there. So well done. Let's close that one out. All right. And as I said, we're skipping next week, but on Wednesday, November 10th, we've got our How to Drive Holiday Growth from Your Loyalty program with Veronica Sonsev taking the helm that week. She had a quick question for everyone. If you have a loyalty program, do you charge customers to participate in it, like Prime or Walmart? 2 answers, yes or no. If you have a loyalty program, do you charge for it? Let's see what folks are saying. All right. All right, here we go. So there's a little delay on my screen there. So forgive that if that impacted anything. But right now it looks like squarely 1/5 are yes, 4/5, 80% or no. Looks like it's going to come out to be 17% yes, 83% no. Interesting. Interesting. All righty, let's close that one. All right, at this point, I'd like to welcome all of our panelists on. Jordan, nice to see you again. Matt, Sunil, Andrea, outstanding. I'm going to take my screen off. There we go. Perfect. How are you guys doing today? Don't all answer at once. No, don't kill me with an overwhelming response here. You guys are a little subdued. You were maniacs on the prep call. So, all right. So let's get the introductions out of the way. I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves and briefly describe your companies, and then I'll ask you. The next question will be to discuss your loyalty program, so we can kind of level set here. Andrea, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Moore. I head up e-commerce and digital at Nest New York. And Nest New York, we sell fine fragrance, home fragrance, and fragrance technology in many channels.
All right. Matt?
I'm Matt Powell. I run technology at FTD, which is a 111-year-old floral e-commerce retailer. We do about 7.5 million flower orders a year, fulfilled via a network of 9,000 independent florists across America.
All right. Sunil.
Hello, everyone. This is Sunil Kaki. I head up consumer marketing for Beachbody and Openfit. Beachbody is about 22 years old. We've been doing this for a bit, and we're in the health and fitness space. So a lot of you might remember the P90X Insanity sort of workout videos, and that's what was created by Beachbody. Now there's a streaming service that you can stream about 80 plus programs on the platform and work out and stay healthy at home. So,
all right. So same order, Andrea. Let's talk about your loyalty program. Let's go into some detail there. Why don't you give us a description of that, and then we'll move to Matt.
Yeah, so we don't actually technically have a formal loyalty program where people opt in and achieve points, or not a sort of traditional spending program. We do things for our customers. So that may be, special sneak previews of promotions that we're running, or special gift with purchase products. We may send products that we're launching to consumers early, our top customers early. And we also prioritize their interactions with our customer experience team through phone, web, and chat. So they have their own phone number, email address, and they get prioritized at the top of the queue there as well. And we're working on some other things for next year.
All right, great. Matt.
The mute button. I keep missing the mute button. I keep muting because it's loud at my house, and I keep missing the mute button. So at FTD, we have a loyalty program, but it really is broken. So we're in the middle of relaunching it. We're considering working with Yapo. It depends on how Jordan performs in this meeting. So let's get some reviews in the chat.
No pressure, right?
No pressure. But for us, it's not really a great program. It neither drives incremental value for us from our customers, and it doesn't really meet the customers where they are, in a great way. Like our average number of orders with us per year is about 1.25, and for the program to make economic sense for a customer, they have to order more than that. And the customers who do use it order too much, and then we lose money. So we're in like ground up rewrite of our loyalty program mode at present.
That doesn't mean you would get rid of everything. That you have I remember you mentioning in the call that you were really proud of your reminders offering.
Yeah, so and I think without falling down the rabbit hole of things I know we'll talk about later, I believe that loyalty is first won through like great customer experiences and operational excellence. And so I would say, I've been at FTD since April 2020. I'm part of a turnaround team after a bankruptcy. I would say that all of our effort actually are on trying to fix the operations and experience so that we can earn loyalty by doing things like getting the flowers that you ordered, where you ordered them, on the time you ordered them. But there are other services that we provide that are, I think, that fit in this bucket too. And the one you just mentioned, Alan, is reminders. And so people are kind of selfish just generally. Like they're sort of thinking about themselves. They often forget other people's important holidays. And so our reminder platform for me is probably the foundational brick in our loyalty program. And it's the best exchange of value because it basically allows me to say to you, hey, Alan, I know you're not very good at remembering even the important days in your life, let alone the less important ones. Just sign up for reminders and I'll tell you and make it easy. Every time you need to do everything from order flowers for your spouse to, send flowers for Assistance Day and everything in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to make sure that got covered. So that was an interesting take on that. Sunil, let's chat about yours.
Yeah, we're in a similar boat. We don't have a formal loyalty program, but because of the space that we're in, and as most or all of us know, working out is just hard. So we are forced to actually create habits that drive engagement early on. So we've always sort of had certain elements of a formal loyalty program in our business. Everything from badges and gamifying sort of the experience in the early onboarding process to lead gen to quizzes and things like that to personalize. So there's a lot of those elements that are already in there, but we don't have a formal loyalty program today.
Mm-hmm. One of the I guess I have a better way of saying it, pleasantly frustrating parts of putting this webinar together was the fact that there's just so many different directions we can go with this, and there's so much to discuss. And it was at the end of when the speaker call went long, real long, we all kind of looked at each other like, we got to put some guardrails on this thing. There got to be some guidelines. We're going to be here for 3 hours. And I thought one of the things, the theme that kept coming up that I thought was really key was that all of you agreed that retailers needed to think like a small business, but they had to do it at scale. And that seemed to cover a lot of ground. So Matt, forgive me, I can't remember which one of the four of you brought it up first, but I remember you being a pretty passionate advocate for that. Let's start there and we'll toss this one around. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I think the internet arguably makes us lazy because it feels like there is an infinite number of potential customers. And so we think in a very transactional way about reaching audiences and converting them. Small businesses generally can't do that, right? If it's a local small business, it's not like the locale is expanding at some accelerating rate. Like you got kind of a captive audience around your space. And if it's a sort of a niche small business that operates at a more national scale, it's the same thing. Like how many people need performance carburetors for UTVs if that's what you do? And so you end up thinking like every single customer is really important because they're a member of my community and they're how I get others and retain others. And so small businesses, they take every relationship very seriously and they have a level of direct and one-to-one contact with their customers that allows them to know them and have empathy for them and act in a thoughtful way. And Jordan actually brought this point up in our pre-chat about just how mathematical, I think, with the words metricized, I think was the word.
Yes,
I thought we agreed
that
wasn't a real word.
Metricize.
The internet is amazing because digital is amazing. It gives us metrics for everything, and we can get so much smarter and we can learn so much. But the problem is when you start looking at those models as only math, you start going, what do I care? I'm really happy converting 12.5%. It's like, what's happening with the others, right? Like, can you imagine a coffee shop that was psyched about converting 12% of walk-ins? It'd be insane because you'd be like, we're doing something wrong, right? And so I think that it's sort of two things. It's the intimacy you get from contact as a small business that you'd like to scale in a big business. But I also think it's the standard you set for yourself as a small business in terms of winning in your community and wanting to kind of win every single customer that we need to kind of take at scale and not settle for the fact that we're totally happy to treat people transactionally in a way that leads them to that we would never do if they were actually in our community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Andrea came up with a phrase on the call that Sunil objected to. So we will not use that phrase here. We will use the word contented as opposed to how Andrea correctly put it. So Andrea, do you want to talk about that contentedness and how you're dealing with fighting that, making certain that you don't become that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as marketers, I think over the past couple of years, we just have had such an opportunity to acquire new customers at such a fast pace and low cost that I said we became fat, dumb, and happy. So then we need to all sign up for Beachbody if we're going to be fat, dumb, and happy. But I think we all just kind of got on this train of like, we got to get more customers now. And we sort of dropped the ball on the motherhood and apple pie of retail, which is clienteling and relationships. And I love this idea of, thinking like a small mom and pop store, but scaling it up. And I think this is not an endorsement. I'm not a customer. I'll say this and then duck under the table. I'm not an animal person. I have no pets, but I think a company that's doing this exceptionally well is Chewy, right? Yeah. So, when someone's, loses a pet, they send flowers. When it's someone's dog's birthday, they send a gift. Like, they do these incredible things that are like just stunning on the regular, right? They do this all the time. And it's clear that their customer service team is empowered to make customers happy. And I don't think there's many other rules. I think it's like, make customers happy and they'll be loyal, And so I think we could keep it as simple as that. And then, the parameters come after that. Like, how many times does someone buy? What are they buying? Why are they buying? How do we get more from them? But if you just keep them happy and, and also if they don't love the product, then let's find out why, or let's get them something they will love. I think we just have to kind of dial back to the things that make us happy in our, everyday interactions.
Yeah, there was Matt offered an example of, careful how much detail I go into. Let's just say she was aware of an example of where a company had a product that could be improved, that was clearly in need of improvement and was most expensive in its space. And their answer was to spend more money marketing it, that the tagline would be the answer. And that certainly isn't the case, is it, Matt? You don't have to give the actual name of that company, but it's indicative of the thinking that, all right, the answer is to spend money on marketing as opposed to fix the underlying problem.
Andrea's way of describing this, I think, is the best one. It is fat, dumb, and happy. It's like the data gives you enough information to be very lazy about the downside. And I think that the exciting thing, arguably, for customer experience writ large with the cookie change is that some of that's being taken away from us. And it's part of what makes people hate the internet. And it's part of what makes people hate marketers. So it's a good thing for everybody, And I think it's fine, Alan, to not mention the name because it's a common habit, right? To just go, what do we care? Like, let's just fill the funnel. We talked also in our pre-event about that thing that happens when you go to leave a company, and it's most common with long-term subscription-based services. And you call and you say, hey, I'm not going to do cable with you or cell phone with you or whatever. And the company goes, I've got a way better offer for you. And there's something broken about the fact that either new customers are being offered better things or leaving customers are being offered better things, but the actual loyal customer is getting the worst price because the company's looking at it and going, look at that dummy. They're willing to pay that. We'll just let them keep paying it.
Yeah, let's just say a major satellite service does that to me with clockwork every year, and they have done it for the last 10 years. It is just it is as predictable as you can possibly imagine. And it's frustrating for that very reason. I'm not loyal. I'm trying to get as much out of them as I possibly can for as little as I possibly can. I am not loyal to them in any sense of the word. Sunil, let me bring you in, and then Jordan will fold you back in. I mean, Sunil, I apologize. I mean, clearly, we definitely got to get fit here. So it didn't. I'll turn it over to you. Any additional thoughts on this?
No, I think it's exactly right. Like we sort of landed on this concept of like acting like a small business at scale. And candidly, like, customer acquisition, CPAs, CACs are higher. So it's not even just like a nice to have. It's just something we have to reprioritize and start to focus on, right? And it's a major shift in how marketing is sort of prioritizing, how product is prioritizing, how tech is prioritizing, like all of these things, they all have to align. And only then does a real sort of change happen, right? Otherwise, we'll see what happens in the poll. We lean into discounts because it's easy to give away discounts for an email ID, right? But the true sort of loyalty programs, we talked about this a bit, is are things that are integrated into the customer experience all the way through, right? Like Prime is a good example. It's great because you get free shipping, but that has so many more implications than just what marketing is doing. It's the customer experience, and that's something that's a shift in, I feel like, across the organization, across multiple departments. It's not just a marketing problem, and it's something that senior leadership has to sort of pivot to, because it's been easy, right? And I wouldn't I don't subscribe to the fat, dumb, and happy, but like I think it's really, I think it's just prioritization, right? Like the prioritization has to shift, and this is sort of the impetus for doing that, right? And really focusing on the leaky bucket, which all of us have, of losing more customers. Like it's way cheaper to keep a customer than to go acquire a customer, not just now, but always. But that's never been the focus of most marketing, but product, but tech. It's just across the board. I think the right KPIs around retention and really not making that bucket more leaky, I think is going to be even more important over the next few years.
Jordan, I see you nodding there. I need to bring you in. I need to bring you back.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's such a unique challenge that we're in now that like the way that marketing has evolved from the small business world where it was very local. Even if you're talking about 100 years ago, maybe you had like local retail shops that were very curated, and then you had eventually department stores came to the fold, and then you had mini malls, which had, you know, department stores and small local businesses, and then you had the internet, which is an infinite size mall. And so it is, while it's important to operate as that small business mindset in terms of the relationships you build, it's harder than ever, and it's harder even today than it was a year ago and 2 years ago, because just you're it's not just that the mall's infinite. You're always in the mall. You go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, you're there all the time. I don't know who else does this. I go on Instagram, I see an ad for something that I might potentially want. So I open it, one, hoping that they'll retarget me because I don't have time right now and maybe I'll come back later. Two, sometimes I actually open that as a tab in Safari. And then I just next time I open Safari and I'm scrolling through the million tabs that I have open, I'm seeing, oh yeah, I wanted to buy that. And that's like, it's like, and I have like how many of those Safari tabs open is I don't know, endless, like at any given time until I eventually like do a cleanse. And so I think it is a unique challenge. And I agree that it comes in so many different forms in terms of how we do it, right? Because doing it at scale is never going to be the same as doing it in person. But there are many things, and I think we talked about some of these things on the call, and how can you offer some very personalized services to a certain subset of customers, your advocates, the ones who love you, that do actually create those one-to-one relationships. Like we talked about, like VIP tier, like, or certain access to, I don't know, cosmetic video consultations that brands will do if you reach a certain access level. And that's a great opportunity to tell them about everything else you have and provide them with value. Same thing for fashion, and sort of the same thing for fitness. Like the opportunities are actually quite broad there. It's just like everyone else said, the implementation of it is challenging, and who do you offer it to? Right. I think that's one of the other big challenges, because you can't offer it to everyone.
The implementation is also lazy, right? And this is sort of, again, back to Andrea's point. This is the problem. It's like all of these things, they're usually, when they're done well, they're done in a way that's not lazy. When they're done badly, it's lazy, right? Like when your loyalty program is earn points for sharing things on social and for buying things only, and it doesn't line up the parts, then it's not that, then it misses an opportunity to really be a meaningful exchange in value. Like Sunil made a great point when we were speaking earlier too about that. Like, how do you make sure that the loyalty action is sort of like a part of the product experience so that these things fit together in a way that makes sense? Like, build something thoughtful, and people that are coming to Sunil's business are coming because they want to change the way that they feel or the way that they look. So you have a joint interest in helping them achieve success in that area. So how do you build a loyalty program that helps them get over their barriers, because their barriers are also your attrition points? And that's a win-win for everybody, versus kind of a lazy, oh, it's a discount for this and a discount for that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it should be the least interesting part of the thing, you know?
Yeah, and I think
like,
that's,
don't be afraid to road test things with your best customers. Ask people what they want. You know, especially your best customers. It's surprising sometimes what they come back with. So it isn't always a discount.
Yeah, and I think like there's so much more to it than discounts, and not to be like a full shill for a loyalty program, right? Like there's different grades, right? There's direct discount, that's super transactional. There's points, which tend to have a much lower value in terms of discount, but customers feel it and they build up. And then there's access, and there's unique benefits that actually make you feel probably more special than a lot of the discounts combined. And I know we've used like the airline example, and I know it's so overused in general, but you look at airlines, they have an inherently bad product just from the experience standpoint. It's never fun to fly and like be jammed in a tin can, and yet people optimize for this on specific airlines, and it's like a compounding experience, which I don't know who said this, Matt, or maybe it was Andrea, where the fact that you have loyalty with an airline means you get a better experience, which means, and it's an experience you can only get by being in their like tier of loyalty program, which flywheels, and it gives you more opportunity to get that experience. And now you have a better sentiment of the brand.
Well, like I would argue Glossier, the entire business is a loyalty platform, right? They come up with an idea for a product based largely on conversation among their community. What does that tell the community? We're being listened to. They have then an ability to create a product based on needs that are in the community and then take it back to the community to weigh in, and who then goes and tells everybody else about it. Like that's the dream, right? And I think your point, Jordan, that like access and participation with the brand, for the right kind of brand anyway, is really what people want, which is like to feel like they matter. You know what I mean? To like show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to that, but I also want to hit some of the audience questions. We always ask the audience members for their questions. Certainly, please keep them coming in. It's always great to hear what you guys have to say. We did, during the polling, I asked what else what other retailers are doing to help promote their loyalty program. One of them was a suggested gift with purchase. Another one was an extended warranty or priority support. So 2 more ideas of what you can do to be there when your customers want you to be there, and find a way to communicate with them in a way that's meaningful to them. We do have a question, the first one, and I wanted to hit this. What have the panelists done in terms of adding or adjusting your teams to be better at loyalty? Sunil, you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, so I think I was mentioning this earlier, right? Like even how we're structuring our teams, we're weighing more on customer, not loyalty specifically, but just customer engagement a lot more, right? Like historically, it's been, more on the acquisition side and a few people sending emails, right? So,
yep.
And now the balance is shifting over the last sort of year or so. We've been sort of rebalancing the team to focus more around community, organic social, email, CRM, just customer insights, a lot more than just traditionally. We've been very heavy on the acquisition side, right? Acquisition, landing page optimization, funnel optimization, that's where we've been focused on. So rebalancing the teams in recognition that this is where it's headed over the next few years, or where it should be actually, right? And that's the right balance. It's not just loyalty, but just overall, we're kind of shifting more, investing more on that side. And that goes for data as well, and data science teams to really drive like propensity scoring for high value, like identifying high value actions, and then propensity scoring for who has a propensity to drive that high value action or get to the high value action. And how do we incentivize the high value action? And moving away from just pure transactional actions and incentivizing sort of embedded behaviors in the business that lead to longer term sort of retention in the right behavior, right? Because you can incentivize the next purchase, but then you're always in the business of just buying the next sale,
right,
rather than creating the right habit to then sort of say like, all right, how do you get the flywheel going? So really becoming smart and really focusing on more than just the top line KPIs, but like the embedded KPIs is going to be a key part of that journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Andrea, Matt, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's a couple things. Everything Sunil said makes total sense, especially when you're dealing with a lot of data and you can really create insights that are meaningful based on your data. But I think it even starts farther up the chain. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not going to say how long, but it's been a long time. And I've worked at companies that have said they're merchant driven and that they're design driven and that they're product driven. And I think when you start to say we're customer driven, then a lot of things fall into place, because if you start everything you're doing with the customer in mind, and if you think of yourself as a customer, a lot of things then become quite easy. Like the decisions are easy. There's no channel conflict. There's no brand conflict. You know, if you start with like, what does my customer really want and how do I think what I would say is it's a lot easier, just like we still have to keep an existing customer than get a new one. It's a lot easier to keep an employee than to get a new one. And so I think it's about empowering people to act as ambassadors for your customer, whether that's a product marketer, whether that's a customer service associate. Like, I don't want someone to call and ask me if they can give someone a refund someone. Do it. Like, what you're empowered to make the decision to keep a customer happy. Like, you don't have to ask. That's your role, right? So I think it's also about creating a culture that enables that behavior from the top down, that then keeps customers happy, right? So if we're happy in our roles and our teams are happy, then hopefully that spills over into our customers too.
Yeah, and I thought it was. Let me ask this, and I'll bring Matt on for this one. So when we were talking in the prep call, Matt made said that one of the big issues was program over intention, and I'm wondering if some of the staffing and some of the realignment within retailers gets, I don't want to say thwarted, but hindered by kind of this mentality of, well, it's the program. Like, this is a loyalty program, this is a retention program, instead of stepping back and saying, no. It's about taking care of your customers. And Matt, since you since you mentioned that, I wanted you to have a chance to roll with that.
Sure. First, I would say I think that the 2 points that Sunil and Andrea's made are like so right on, and that the resonant thought they leave me with, and this is how we think about things at FTD, is loyalty is not a program or a department or a resource. It's a way of being. And I think the thing that Andrea added to it about the role that employees play in that is critical, because if your employees aren't loyal to the organization, they don't feel connected to it, they're not proud of it. When they contact customers in whatever format they do it, customers aren't going to feel that either. And so I think that the opportunity is to think that way. It's to level this idea up. And sure, programs are expressions of that truth, but ultimately, how do we deliver on taking care of customers in a way that respects the relationship they have with our business as a matter of course in our relationship with them? Like, I had a very popular professional social network platform in the early 2000s, so don't blame them, say to me, or mid 2000s, people that come to our platform once a month, we're going to get them to come once a week. And if they come once a week, we're going to come once a day. And if they come once a day, we're going to come once an hour. And I was like, then you're the worst. Because the last thing that people need is another platform to have to go to hourly. And I think there's an opportunity for us as businesses and as brands to be more honest about what customers actually want, and to operate in a way that respects that and gives them what they need. And so loyalty has to be built in layer by layer, brick by brick, to everything that you do. You have to actually value your customer and then act like it. And anything short of that is a program that may in fact be effective, but will miss its opportunity to be fully effective because it's vapid.
No, totally agree. It was funny because when I was researching what questions I wanted to ask the panelists, I came across, what is loyalty? And it was for improving relationships. And it was funny because so much of those are exactly what drives loyalty. They were saying it's empathy and it's active listening and it's make the other person a priority and factor the other person in, right? Does that sound like customer service? When we have a question from the audience, how important is it to weave loyalty into customer service, and how have you implemented it? Jordan, I'm certain you're going to have something to say about this. So I'm going to fire off with you, but I love that question because I think customer service is a huge opportunity to connect with your customers in a way that really galvanizes them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually been seeing a huge trend of people like weaving, and that's the question, weaving loyalty into customer service. And I think weaving is even like an understatement for a lot of people. I think it's like a critical piece, right? Customer service, usually there's an issue. And both of what I've experienced personally as a consumer and what we've seen a lot of brands do is that when there's an issue, and they're always going to arise no matter what brand you are, because brands make mistakes, their operations don't account for every single possible outcome. it's genuinely an opportunity to actually make someone even more loyal and create a more positive sentiment. And I moved from New York to Austin. My stuff came very late and somewhat broken, and it was a disastrous experience. But I can tell you, like, the company made up for it in such a way, and not just because of like a partial refund, just the manner in which they took things to an account, that I'm actually probably more likely to recommend them now than I was if everything had gone smoothly. And it's wild to say because it was a bad experience, but I felt like it was so one-off and their response to it was so appropriate that it was actually above appropriate that I like love them. And we see a lot of brands doing that with simple things. Yes, you know, here's another incentive to come back. We're sorry. Also, we're going to do a partial refund. Also, we're going to apologize like in a genuine manner. Yep. And I think that piece of taking responsibility, going back to small business in a large business world, is sort of something that's forgotten, and it gets people to, one, give you another chance, but it's more than that. They recognize that someone's sorry, which is a human emotion that needs to occur, and we're shopping online. It's very hard to convey that. And so I think we see like a big trend. A lot of our customers, we've made a bunch of integrations with customer service platforms because of the demand for the way that people are integrating it. So I guess the answer is quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. Retailers, what are you guys thinking? Anyone can jump in on this. This is a free one. Anyone can take it. Oh, don't all jump in at once, Sunil.
No, I mean it's it's so obvious in a lot of ways, right? Like it's, especially if you think about who's interacting with the customer the most, you know, and at the most critical points of time, like, you know, the customer service, I think it's so critical, and they're the front lines in a lot of ways. Like none of us who are sitting in front of computers and in Zoom calls all day long, like we're not really talking to customers. So it's absolutely critical for it to be an integral part. And I think, to, you know, Andrea's earlier example of Chewy empowering them, right? Like no, lean in, and there's no boundaries, right? Like this will, and have the confidence that it'll pay out in the longer term because of retention and goodwill and like referrals and organic sort of good behavior that happens. Like just lean into that. And I think that's something that we can encourage across the board, and especially the team that interacts with the customers day in and day out. Makes absolute sense.
Yeah, and I think too, like really reading like ask for feedback from customers on their service experience and read it and act on it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, ask people, how do we do? How can we make it better? And then really actually put that into place. You know, I can't take credit for the idea, but we did implement last year a recommendation to, again, bump top customers up to the top of the queue, and you know, enable the customer service team to see what's, you know, to know that someone's a high roller, for lack of a better term, or not, right? So I mean, it's simple, right? If you have a platinum card, you have a different phone number, or if you are a high roller at the casino, you get treated differently. So it's really like, what are those little moments that you can capitalize on? Like any touch point is an important touch point. And also, people are so geared up to have a bad experience that they're really happy if they have a good experience. You know, like if they're calling customer service, they're already like, it's already problematic, right? They're not calling to say hi. So like, how do you really turn that around?
Yeah, absolutely. People get so stressed. When I was selling cast iron clawfoot tubs and plumbing fixtures with my family's business, you know, people are at their wits' end sometimes. They have just had it with their home construction, and then a contractor drops a sink, and you're just like, yeah, ma'am, that's a $700 sink your guy just trashed, and they're in tears with you, and you're like, all right. And our policy is never to profit from someone else's misfortune. I'll say the last one I got at our cost. You know what I mean? Like even just doing that, you know, just if as long as you're reasonable, and I think that's to Jordan's point. I think as long as you're reasonable and listening, you can just make super loyal customers. Matt, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you about to jump in there with?
No, it's funny. I was going to comment on something Sunil said, but you actually remind me of, I think, something that's perhaps more useful. which is that, like, I think, again, we often think about only one part of the customer service experience. So what I'm reminded of is I'm thinking of a major big box construction store have been doing business with recently, and who does in a lot of ways very, very great work. But I had to bounce between to solve one problem of delivery that they failed to make, where the order management page continued to say that my order was scheduled for delivery 7 days in the past. I had to bounce through 3 different types of their call center, from a store to the e-com to a different store, every time on hold, every time having to re-describe my issue, in each case, the person not having enough information to solve the problem. Why is this relevant to our conversation? Because it's a systems failure that makes it impossible for anything that they do in customer service conversationally to matter. Because by the time I'm actually talking to someone, I'm irate at their ineptitude in getting me to the right person. And so as we think about these things, it's very easy to look at your customer service team and be like, well, hit better metrics or give them more control. But you actually have to look at the entire footprint of the customer service experience, and not what happens in the lab, but what happens in the field, and really be honest about where the friction is. And like, the amount of times that channel conflict gets in the way of good customer experience and damages loyalty in many businesses is very high. And so, all of these things, I guess I'll tack the other thing I was going to say on Sunil's, because it sort of fits. The biggest problem with how metrics everything has gotten, that's not a word either, Jordan, in this new world we live in, is we then assume that the metrics tell a complete story. And Sunil raised a point about a huge gap in the metrics, which there's no credible way to assess how impactful this customer is to other customers. So as a result, we just don't include it in our calculus. And so we're building a business case for being better at these things, whether it's a business case to solve the systems problem or a business case to reduce hold times by having more agents, or whatever the thing may be, to go from adding to a call center on top of email, whatever the thing may be. We have to not just think about the things that the metrics allow us to see directly, but also the things that we know to be true that we simply don't have metrics for, and come up with some sort of placeholder for them. And none of this stuff gets done. And so what ends up happening is we eject customers out the back of our businesses who could have been saved, who could have been loyal, who could have told our story, like the example Jordan used, because we just don't do the work to look at the experience end to end.
Yeah, it's first off, it's amazing. We have 3 minutes left. It's just how fast this goes. And there's 2 great questions here, and I just got to get to them. I'm going to start with Stephen Bradbury. Has anyone used or seen good programs that have linked gift card with loyalty, either to direct gift card customers, some of whom will be new, into the loyalty program, or use a gift card as a tangible reward for future spend? Their experience is that loyalty and gift card teams live in totally separate silos. Any commentary on that?
I mean, I can, but I'm, as you can tell, a blowhard, so I don't want to take up the air.
I'll come back to you.
Go for it.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, I think the reason for this is that often the card side of things ends up being a payment arbitrage opportunity. It's a float opportunity. I helped build Dunkin' Donuts' Dunkin' Donuts card platform when they launched it in the early 2000s. And it was a financial instrument. It was not a loyalty instrument. It was an opportunity to eliminate some of the accounting hassles of paper gift certificates and be able to use the significant amount of float from their network as an investment vehicle. So loyalty is bolted onto that discussion because a bunch of bankers are counting money like, Scrooge McDuck. So they probably do need to be folded together. But I think this goes back to this conversation about what the business is all about. So if you're a coffee buyer, like if it's Dunkin' Donuts or it's Starbucks, the card is a loyalty instrument because it's a utility. I can go for a run, just have this card. It's always got money on it. I can use it this way. You know what I mean? But it's not true for every business. So I think it's situational to the business, and whether it's a incentive or part of the loyalty program or both.
I think it's interesting you brought up coffee, because I think the Starbucks model is brilliant, right? The reward is a gift card, but you never get a gift card, and you're almost always, there's very little breakage. Like, you're almost always redeeming it. Mostly the finance people don't like gift cards because they're a liability, right? Yep. Starbucks turned it into like a cost-effective way to give rewards, because they're working around paying American Express every time you use those you use your Starbucks card. I mean, it's brilliant. Like,
and the more cash that gets on it, the more money that they have to earn interest on. It's just free money. It's an ATM.
Yeah.
It has no cogs. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the most brilliant things they did.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, solid stuff. I want to go to this last question, and we're going to go a little long here, but this question is just too good to pass up. This person is asking, it's nice to talk to the softer elements and non-transactional nature of a loyalty program, but I find it's really hard to operationalize it and also get C-level off KPI versus investment required to support a program. What best practices for justifying loyalty program value and all that's required to support good implementation with a CFO, etc.? Love that question.
I can start. Like we sort of had to do this at Amazon quite a bit, and now it's sort of a core part of how media gets invested at Amazon. This is now 8-9 years ago or so, but essentially what we had to go do was identify high value actions and really put a value to it, right? So Prime is a good example, right? Prime, the value to Amazon isn't just $100+ that you pay Amazon. It's actually changes behavior, right? Like instead of going to Google, you go to Amazon to search for products. And that is a massive shift in behavior. And therefore the LTV for somebody signing up for Prime is significantly higher than the $100 a year. But you have to do the work to connect the dots. And then any CFO or a C-level exec is not going to be able to ignore it, right? So you have to connect the dots. And that's usually where the problem is. To say it's a like it's the easiest thing to do to tie a transactional action to LTV, right? Or revenue. But a non-transaction, you just have to connect the dots. So we used to create sort of synthetic cohorts of users that looked like the people that took the action, but that didn't take the action, and then followed it over a year and then determine like an LTV or a downstream impact of that action, right? And oftentimes you'll find that that's worth a lot more than whatever immediate transaction is. And that's how we sort of got around that. And that became very sort of a everyday part of the process. So every action, every action the user took has a DSI. We started off with like a dozen or so, and now I think it's like hundreds of actions within the ecosystem. So that's one way, but then again, it's not easy, right? We were able to do it because it's Amazon. So if there's companies off the shelf that can help you with it, or if you have a data science team that you can narrow the focus down and really start to do that for a few actions, like that's one way of going about it. Again, it's not easy, but it's powerful.
Jordan,
I see
Andrea, and then we're going to wrap it up. But Jordan, you're first.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see like a bunch of different ways based on what we do that people like build the business case, right, internally, because loyalty is a unique business case, and there's a cost that is so much more than just the cost of the software or whatever that you're going to do, because you have, like we've discussed, a bunch of liabilities, whether it's points or perks or whatever it may be. And there's sort of two camps. One is the camp that Sunil talked about, which is very hard without having had a loyalty program or having one in place, even in a small scale, but it's doable. You can look at different cohorts of users and try to figure out how you can nudge people to take certain actions that are likely to make them more loyal over a period of time. I think that's one approach that a lot of people take. The other approach, and it depends on the business, I shouldn't say who specifically they are, but they have sort of specific actions that they want to promote people to. Maybe they're launching a new category. We have all these loyal customers, but there's an awareness issue. So we want to, nudge people in that direction of trying a product in this new category because we believe it's great. And then once they have the habit of using that product, that's another thing that they continue to buy from us. And then there's even layers below, which is the prime example is people want to get signups for SMS because they know it's a great way to market to people. And so they do a lot of rewarding for SMS because they know the value of having someone's phone number. And so there's tons of other benefits to get with the loyalty program, but that one metric on its own sometimes is enough to just justify the entire thing. Because again, a loyalty program can be so broad and comprehensive and can impact your business positively in so many different ways. Sometimes it is best to just say, there is a specific initiative that we have. This is going to drive us towards that. We know that that's a very high value initiative, and that nudging consumers in that direction is very high value to our brand.
Andrea, you've got the last word as we go well over time. And, I'm getting furious Slack messages saying, time to wrap up, time to wrap up.
I'll be quick. I will take a little bit of a contrarian point of view here, but I'll use a fashion adage. I'll say, measure twice, cut once. Beta, beta, beta. Do your homework. Call Matt Powell. I'll give you his mobile number and ask him what it's like to unwind a program that is not good or not successful. Do the work up front before you roll something out that's formal and official to your consumers, because then you're setting an expectation that has financial impact. Do the modeling, do the work before you leave.
And that's it. Sunil had to hop off. He wanted to thank everyone and say that it was really fun and amazing. Matt, Jordan, Andrea, thank you so much for being here. Yotpo, thank you so much for sponsoring it today. We certainly appreciate it. And finally, thanks to our audience for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate your continued interest and support. Please take a moment to share your thoughts in the survey that you'll see at the end of the webinar. I'm Alan Dick, and on behalf of everyone here at Commerce Next, we hope you've enjoyed the webinar and that you have a great rest of the week. Take care, everyone.